And welcome everybody to the Smash News Network, the daily space weather. Today we've got an uptick in the sunspot number, an uptick in solar activity, an upgrade to the geomagnetic storm conditions that are forecasted for late in the day tomorrow, and an update on the hurricane in the Atlantic. So this is the last 24 hours of SDO data, 171 angstroms, the house favorite. All the activity in the southern hemisphere at the moment. Some shifts to the heliospheric current sheet and more to come. Here's the intensity gram. And we'll zoom in a little bit on the southern hemisphere. Just had an M-class flare, so plenty of stuff going on here. Some new sunspot groups to get named today include this group right here, which is recently formed. I believe it's going to be known as 3106, 3107. And also this most recent one rising here behind this large and now somewhat active group. Let's take a brief look at volcanoes. There are quite a lot of erupting volcanoes, including Abico, producing a 10,000-foot ash plume over Paramushir Island. Also Mount Alade, volcanic ash not identifiable in satellite imagery. Don't assume it's not erupting. Dacono exploding, flight level 070 over Halmahera. White Island now producing some ash and light brown gas. The island north of New Zealand there has had the aviation code raised to orange. Volcanic alert level remains at 2. The Home Reef Tonga Island volcano producing a 20,000-foot ash plume as it explodes. Maybe that new real estate is not as stable as we thought. Flight level 200 over the Home Reef Tonga Islands volcano. Popocatépetl exploding, flight level 190. Nevado de Ruiz exploding in Colombia, flight level 230. Flight level 230 over Sangay in Ecuador. Also Revenador exploding. 16,000-foot ash plume from Revenador. Down in Peru, we've got a 24,000-foot ash plume from Sabancaya as it explodes. Flight level 240. And Piton de la Fournaise on the Isle of Réunion continues to erupt. Effusive eruption there, but a decline in volcanic tremor, so expecting that to perhaps calm down. The lava flow continues to keep flows active. Continuing lava flows there on Piton de la Fournaise. Looking at earthquake activity here, the largest quake of the past 24 was a 6.0 near the westernmost Aleutian Island. There's a location of that, not too far from the Kamchatka Peninsula, out there in the Bering Sea. That 6.0 magnitude quake came through at 1823 yesterday. That's 1823 Universal Time. Let's check the rest of the list. It's been fairly calm besides that. No other major quakes, although there was a 4.0 in Covelo, California. Let us know if you felt that quake in the comments. And if we miss any quakes that you did feel any place around the world, let us know in the comments about that too. South Sandwich Islands region saw a 5.1. Indonesia saw a 5.0. Significant number of quakes in Hawaii also. And let's continue on here and get back to space. Here's the last 24 hours from the SDO and ionized helium. Some great imagery there. And there have been some coronal mass ejections also, which we will cover. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux now at 137 solar flux units. There you have the 1-year chart of that. It's the black line depicted there above the red line, which is the sunspot number. That is from solon.info. And the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard, NOAA upgraded the forecast here for the Coronal Hole high-speed stream, expecting some geomagnetic storm conditions early in the day on the 23rd. So Friday the 23rd, expecting the day to start out with some geomagnetic storm conditions. We'll be looking for things like auroral imagery. Follow us on Twitter for that. More on that a little bit later. And here's the earthly geospace. We've got missing data here. It's only showing 20 minutes of data there. It usually shows 4 hours. But that's Earth's magnetic moment from space a few hours ago. Same thing with the ground magnetic perturbations map. Some missing data there. So let's continue on. KP index at 2 at the moment. KP2 is the geomagnetically calm condition. And let's go to the real-time solar wind. Real-time solar wind here subsiding as well. We're now down to 475 kilometers per second approximately for the solar wind speed. Solar wind density nominal here, 6 protons per cubic centimeter. The rest of that fairly uneventful. Goes magnetometers there for the past 3 days. Nothing too exciting happening there. And like we predicted a couple days ago, there may be a North Pole current sheet speeding back this way. So we are expecting that to arrive as early as tomorrow's video. Probably more like midday tomorrow. If you look at the last frame here, you can see that North Pole current sheet almost making it to stereo A already. Here's our line of sight field plot. And let's move to coronal holes. So looking at coronal holes next, we see some North Pole coronal holes there showing up just over the eastern limb, right at the end of the video, the last frames there. You see some North Pole coronal holes at the moment. We've got South Pole oriented coronal holes facing Earth. So there's the 211 angstroms wavelength from SDO for the past 24 hours. And again, that geomagnetic storm and unrest conditions that we're expecting on Friday, late in the day Thursday, early in the day Friday, is from this coronal hole right here of South Pole orientation. Continuing on to sunspots. We've got two more named groups here. So we expected this group here to be named 3107, and we expect this new group rising over the southeast to be named 3108. So sunspot number should rise today. We just had an M-class flare also. We'll get to that in a moment. First, let's take a look at sunspots. Here's some composite imagery from SDO. The past 24 hours in 335 plus 1700 angstroms. And since most of the activity is in the southern hemisphere, that's where we'll be looking. Let's take a look at this sunspot group. It's been pretty stable here over the past 24. No major changes happening there. In the area around 3105, a little bit less so. So again, this group here should get a name today. Also, this group back here should get a name today. So 4 sunspot groups there in a rather small space. And let's look at flaring. We just had an M-class flare. It's barely an M-class flare. It's an M1.01 class flare. So that is the second largest flare of the past 24 hours. And let's take a look at the best wavelengths to view flares, 94 and 131 angstroms. And here's the 131 angstroms. So a bit of activity happening down there in the southern hemisphere. I think the most interesting spot to watch is this group here. although the other group on the western side is also interesting. So we don't see any relativistic particles from any of those flares in the past 24. Proton flux here continues to subside. And let's switch to a star chart. This is for Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, where we're located. And there's a great crescent moon up there, as well as Mars and Jupiter. Venus should be rising shortly. Here is our solar system forecast. As we approach a new moon, we've got a crescent waning. Here's your 1 week forecast for the solar system. Keep in mind this diagram is not to scale. And there's where things will be in a week. We'll have a crescent waxing in 1 week as Venus swings around to the opposite side of the sun. So let's do coronagraphs next. This is yesterday's coronagraph imagery from George Mason University. I don't think any of those CMEs are earthly directed. We've also got today's imagery. So that's still yesterday, and here's today. Again, I don't believe that's an earthly directed CME, as there is some activity on the opposite side of the sun, it looks like. We're going to show you a little bit of data here from the Soho-Lascaux C3 located here at Lagrange 1 also. And we'll show you some stereo A, but keep in mind, it is still old. So not particularly useful there, the stereo A imagery. Soho-Lascaux C3, you can see Venus actually moving into the frame here at the end. Again, we don't expect those additional CMEs to be earthly directed. We are expecting a minor glancing blow style CME strike occurring around the same time as the coronal hole high-speed stream arrives, late in the day tomorrow, Thursday, September 22nd. Anyway, you see this minor CME coming here out of the west. There is one on the opposite side of the sun also happening at the same time there, which is why we don't think that's earthly directed. So here's the last 24 hours. That's 304 angstroms plus the Soho-Lascaux C2 and C3. And let's move on to our ground-based solar observatory here at El Teide, Spain. Zoom in a little bit on that. Quite a few filaments there in the northern hemisphere. You can see those dark absorption features there. Likelihood of coronal mass ejection is not all that high as a result of that, but we'll be keeping an eye on it. Here's the last 2.5 hours in 304 angstroms from the GOES 16 SUVI. It's what we usually stream on Twitch, which we've been doing daily. If you haven't installed the Twitch app, it'll let you know when we go live, and thanks for leaving a comment. Acrylic D and Tin Man 1057. Here's some composite imagery. This is the 171 plus 193 angstroms. And let's pause here for station identification for a quick moment. I want to bring up one more series of images before we move to our bonus features segment. And thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network. Least busted name in news. As we show the most detailed imagery of the sun in the world and the most comprehensive space weather that you'll find anywhere. So here come bonus features. Some minor charging hazards for satellites here of the surface charging variety over Mexico, the Western Caribbean, and moving into the Central Pacific Ocean, caused by low-energy electrons building up on the outside of satellites. There's the GOES electron flux here, rising a little bit. We can expect to see this rise here following this coronal hole high-speed stream, which is now subsiding, just in time for a new coronal hole high-speed stream to show up. There's the NOAA forecast for relativistic electrons. The forecasts are the green boxes. Yellow diamonds are the observation. Here's the one-year chart to put it in context. The relativistic electrons reported by Solon.info will show the F flare of the ionosphere. It's at about 300 kilometers of altitude. And there's the vibrational frequency. Still a lot of high-frequency anomalies happening. And we're only one day from spring, where the Russell-McPherson effect will be maximized. The equinox, fall is coming for the southern hemisphere. Fall is coming for the northern hemisphere, spring for the southern. There we go, that makes sense. And let's bring up the latest image here and show the anomalygram. So there's the anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. Some rapid swings there of high to low frequency anomaly over northern South America. And there's the latest image, 9:45 Universal Time. Next, we'll show the total electron content forecast, and once again, this is broken. So I'll just press refresh just to show you that it's not working. So here's the North American total electron content forecast. It's the coupled thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere electrodynamics model. Those red dots are the ground-based stations that are testing the GPS error. They know their location. They're checking to see how much error is happening from their locations. That is the standard deviation. Showing you the most likely places for GPS errors. And we'll also show the anomaly. Indeed, seeing some anomalies there. South of the Caribbean islands. Also in portions of the West Atlantic. And continuing on to show the latest intensitygram and latest colorized magnetogram. So we'll take a look at this group. It's still beta gamma class. It's still capable of producing large flares. And this area over here, certainly lots of field complexity happening there. Some new groups to get named also in that region. Let's bring up one more series of images here. This is yesterday plus today in 3 wavelengths, 304, 211, and 171 angstroms. And it's time to move into the realm of meteorology. But first, once again, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name of news. If you'd like to support the channel and become a producer, join at the gold or silver level at smashomash.com/smashteam. Thanks to everybody who has assisted in keeping these videos in existence, publicly visible, and free for all to view. You can find other links there as well. Smashomash.com/smashteam is our official subscription services site, approaching our official 1-year anniversary. We launched just in October of last year. The best value is the 1-year gold annual paid-up subscription. It includes complimentary merch. There are links there to the SureMed, so check out the SureMed if you'd like to improve your health. Join the American Better Health Organization, otherwise known as SureMed. It's not insurance, it's a nonprofit organization focused on improving the health of its members. So if you get a base membership, you get all kinds of benefits like doctors by phone, counselors by phone, virtual veterinarians, discounts on dental, discounts on vision, vitamins, labs. There's even a retail and mail order pharmacy you can check out. It's certainly worth the base membership. It also allows you to pick up certain types of insurance to help cover gaps like the hospital indemnity plans and so on. Again, links at the homepage at smashomash.com right there below this video and on the smashomash.com/smash team page. So welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. So visit our links, help us out with clicks. There's even a permanent invite link to the Discord chat right there on the homepage. Also PayPal, Patreon. We are still on Patreon. We are on Locals. There's a group on Facebook called Entropy Busters. That is our group. We're also on Instagram, etc. Don't forget to download the Twitch app, thanks to our Twitch followers. It's where we regularly stream live. Let's take a look at the merch. If you click the merch link below the video or on the homepage, you'll find our merch in order of best-selling. And the best-selling piece of merch shall not be mentioned because this video is for YouTube. So thanks wherever you've watched it. Today's featured product is Do Not Pole Vault the Caldera, our second bestseller. And once again, some news coming out overnight about how strength in the U.S. dollar is a danger to China and to other countries. Well, folks, it's because our finest days lie ahead, and America is entirely responsible for making Earth not suck again. The U.S. leads the way in a lot of different features. If you think the U.S. dollar is going to go away at some time soon, it's just not happening. Other fiat currencies feature worse inflation than the U.S. dollar. And if people are misdefining, putting out misinformation or disinformation about what inflation is, it's not prices rising. Inflation is more dollars chasing the same number of goods and services. Our finest days lie ahead, so don't pole vault the caldera. If you're going through hell, keep going. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, folks. If you're having bad times, things shall improve. Better decisions will get made by bureaucrats. Better decisions will get made. People will insist upon it, so don't pole vault the caldera. Do check us out on Twitch. If you're not watching us on Twitch, thanks to our new followers over there, twitch.tv/smashomash is where we stream live the most. And we're also on Twitter if you haven't checked us out there. If you don't have an account on Twitter, make sure you get an account on Twitter. Thanks to everybody that interacts over on Twitter. Thanks to our new followers, etc. It's always interesting. And you don't want to know what I've been saying to Robert Reich. Press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content on YouTube. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists on this platform. I know it's rife with pathetic censorship, but hey, it's where most of our content is located. Check our playlists for videos that aren't about space weather and aren't about meteorology. There's a Terms Defined playlist where you can hear all kinds of terms being defined. Some new terms like sharticle, maybe the Second Amendment being defined, some constitutional legal lessons by President Joe Biden over there. Also check out the Diamond Anvil, Too Hard to Smash, the cosmology segments of which there are over 260 videos. Smashomash.org presents the sun, some aesthetic views of the closest star, and it's time to go to meteorology. So what's going to happen is in the next 3 days, this cold water right here is going to finally weaken that hurricane. There's also going to be some jet stream interaction, creating some wind shear just before that occurs as it moves due north through the Atlantic. We'll show you the forecast in a moment. It's going to strengthen as it moves north. Here are the surface winds of the eastern side of the planet. Here are the jet streams of the eastern side of the planet. They are blowing backwards over the West Pacific and the northern Indian Ocean. Here are the jet streams of the Americas. The west side. In the southern part of the U.S. is a giant anticyclone. That's a high-pressure zone right there. You see that clockwise rotation, the sure sign of anticyclones in the northern hemisphere. Here's an anticyclone in the southern hemisphere over northeastern South America. Surface winds of this side of the planet look like this. And as we forecasted yesterday, that hurricane is indeed gaining strength. There's quite a bit of warm water between that hurricane and Newfoundland. Fortunately, there is some cold water up there at Newfoundland, which will weaken it. Some heavy rains expected for portions of eastern Canada. Here are the surface winds of the central world. Pretty calm there over most of Europe. And there are the jet streams. Here's your weather.gov map. If your county's lit, click your county. Some significant flooding here for Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Arizona. Sort of centered on the Four Corners region now, extended to most of Arizona. Only the western portion of the state, they're not showing up in a flood watch. Again, if your county's lit, head to weather.gov and click your county. It's too much for us to cover in this video. So here's your total accumulated precipitation forecast. Heaviest rains expected to be in southern Colorado there. Besides the rain in the East Atlantic. Check it out. Yowzers. West Atlantic. West Atlantic. So some heavy rain's going to fall there on nobody out in the ocean. That's your GFS total accumulated precipitation forecast for the next 72 hours. Precipitation totals shown here in inches. Continuing on to our wind and pressure forecast. And at the end of that, the pressure is only expected to be 947 millibars, so it's going to remain quite steady. There is some wind shear that's going to affect the system here. You can see that wind interaction happening there. Some cold air from Canada is going to blast down. And here is the jet stream interaction. You can see that cold air coming down from Canada there and affecting things. And just after that, it will drive into some cold water. So here's a Euro forecast. Let's move this ahead 3 days. There's where the European forecast has it making landfall at Nova Scotia there. The Euro forecast expecting it to be a little bit stronger than the GFS forecast and a little bit farther to the west. The GFS forecast puts this only a little bit farther to the east. Pretty close. But a little bit higher pressure there in the GFS forecast, so not as intense, but that's going to be some heavy rains and some other issues there, like storm surge for Nova Scotia, and then, of course, Newfoundland also. Fortunately, some cold water there to the east of that to weaken things. Here's your NASA GOES lightning mapper. You can see heavy lightning on the east side of that hurricane. And let's check the real-time lightning map for terrestrial lightning strikes in the U.S. Have we got some? Looks like some out here west of Cleveland, out in Lake Erie. And some terrestrial strikes there. Anyway, there's where your active cells are currently located, courtesy lightningmaps.org. Use it next time you hear thunder. It's splentacular. And here's a U.S. Doppler radar map. We're going to focus on the lower 48. Those are the ground-based Doppler radar systems. Here is the satellite-based shortwave radiation map showing clouds and fog. And here's water vapor. You can see in all of this imagery a pretty well-defined eye there for that hurricane. And it's going to continue strong for the next 2 days until some wind shear finally shows up and weakens it a little bit. But it's not going to lose much strength at all, as it'll still be at under 950 millibars of pressure. So here's your recap. U.S. Doppler radar. Shortwave radiation. Let's do a zoom. And here's water vapor showing all the water vapor. Let's zoom on that also to close things out. And thanks for tuning in to the Daily Space Weather. Once again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-a-Mash, signing off from the Smash News Network. And may that solar wind be at your back. Opinions expressed in this video are not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least posted name in news.